Hello, and welcome to the Skiffy Fantasy Show's Torture Cinema.
Bridging the divide between Vietnam and Sasquatch.
That's actually accurate, and not a thing I was expecting at all. So, I'm Shaun.
I'm David.
I'm Trish.
And today we're talking about the 1976 Bigfoot film Creature from the Black Lake. So let me say that again.
Nope. Creature from Black Lake. There is no "the."
Well, also the way I said that made it seem like it was a 1976 Bigfoot creature from Black Lake, which, anyway, we're talking about 1976's Bigfoot film called Creature from Black Lake. Written and directed by Joy N. Hook Jr. It stars Jack Elam, who's amazing and perfect, Dub Taylor, Dennis Fimple, John David Carson, and Bill Thurman. Creature from Black Lake has a 5.1 rating on IMDb and a 34% on Rotten Tomatoes popcorn meter, which I'm sure we're going to address today.
This film was selected by our Patreon supporters based on a poll of Trouble at Lakes movies, a theme suggested by Joe the Jovial. If you're not yet subscribed to our Patreon, please join and get a chance to suggest future torture for us. Force it upon us by voting in upcoming polls, and even join us watching it live on Discord, all for as low as $1 a month.
Yeah. Alrighty, before we dive into this supposed mess, emphasis on the word supposed, let's get to what beverage we are drinking. As a reminder, for anybody who's watching this now or later, alcohol is not required on the Skiffy Fantasy Show. If you do imbibe, you are allowed to imbibe. If you imbibe while you are at home, please do so legally and responsibly, and don't do anything stupid like get behind a wheel and drive. If you're going to have a beer or a cocktail or 6 gallons of absinthe, which you shouldn't do, that's way too much. But if you just have any amount, sit at home on your couch and watch cartoons and be chill. Those are the rules. All right, David, what are you drinking?
I'm having some Calvados.
What's that?
It's French apple brandy.
Oh. Okay. That's sufficiently fancy.
I'm having filtered water, but I'm having it in my special Santa strung out on a hammock between palm trees, insulated glass.
That almost...
It is the Christmas season.
Which makes everything better.
You just made me think of, like, Christmas in July when we did that for this. Not the same thing, but still. Okay. Me.
Don't you go reminding me of Santa and the Easter Bunny.
I
no,
can't.
Don't do that.
God, it's so bad. Well, for me, I have 2 drinks. One is actually not much in it, but this one is a full beer. This is called Motor Boater, which is a beer from Dimensional Brewing Company in Iowa. It is an oatmeal stout, 6.8% ABV, and it is friggin' delicious. I will just tell you, super roasty, which is exactly how I like my stouts. And then I just have a very small amount. It looks like there's a lot of liquid, but that's because I put a crap load of ice in it and it melted. This is just a French connection with there's not a lot in there, actually. So, just in case anyone thinks I'm having a lot, like, oh, full beer. This was like full of ice, and then it all melted. So, I'm not an alcoholic. Anyway, okay. I like how nobody reacts to that at all, like you believe anything I said. Thank you so much. I feel really supported right now, guys. Wow. Okay, well, fine. So let's get to summaries. Trish has been volunteered for this, which I don't think Trish was aware of. But yeah, what's this movie about?
All right. We start out with a flashback or cold open of two boaters, fishers on a lake that is clearly southern. You know, you've got you got your cypress knees, you got your algae scum on some parts and lily or lily pads or whatever on the others. They are in a little john boat puttering around and planning to fish, and a critter, a giant hand reaches up from the water and yanks one of them in, and the other one beats it off. It tries to get the other guy too, but he beats it off with a paddle and then flees. Later, at some university in Chicago, I don't remember if it's specified, it's professor.
The University of Chicago.
Okay. A professor and two graduate students are walking along, and he tells them about rumors or legends of a Bigfoot Sasquatch skunk ape type critter down in Louisiana. And they talk him into giving them money and wheels to go down and investigate this. They go down, try to find the guy that was one of the fishermen who escaped, and one of them actually talks to him, but lets him give him the slip. They talk to some other guy who it turns out has generational trauma with the Bigfoot skunk ape thing, and they go and ask horrible questions and act rudely to a family that the middle generation was slain by the skunk ape, and eventually get themselves thrown out. Later, they date some girls who came up to them in an active teenage rebellion against the sheriff father, and
they're so dreamy and so beautiful.
Guys get thrown in jail. Next day, they go camping again to try to find the thing. And one of them is badly injured, and the other one injures him some more. But eventually they make it to a hospital and say, now we're going to have to do this research project all over again. The end!
Okay, Trish, I love the way that you say the other one injures him some more, just burying the lead, which is a knife.
Well,
no, he buried the knife, not the lead.
Much like he buried the knife in his buddy's guts.
Yeah. I was kind of waiting for that to happen.
Well, I didn't get to everything. Yeah. You know, I was trying to summarize. There's a lot more I can and will say about this movie, but...
Yeah. So we have to have an educational moment first, which is brought on by Configuration Queen, actually, and the fact...
All our shows are educational.
Well, that is true, but I'm not usually the one bringing the education, so I'm like ironically, the anti-education. It's usually David, when he's here, will, like, give us a 25-minute spirited lecture about, like, the most obscure film world in the universe, and then explain why your favorite directors came out of it. But I get to do some of my fun cryptozoology nonsense today. Because this is a film that's about it's about Bigfooty things, and so among the things that are mentioned is the skunk ape, which Configuration Queen asked in chat about. The skunk ape is generally associated with the state of Florida. It is often viewed as Florida's Bigfoot legend. There's quite literally, and I'm not kidding you, a skunk ape research facility, which is basically a shack you can visit in the Everglades that, like, sells literature and other things, right? There are people that do really believe that there is some sort of ape-like creature that lives in, often they associate with the Florida Everglades. People claim to have seen it. I've seen no such evidence of it. I think it's unlikely, but, you know, weirder things have happened. There is a wiki page, as Lenny points out, that goes to the skunk ape, so you can learn about it. It is worth pointing out that since this is set in Louisiana, while skunk ape could be part of what is the legend they're dealing with here, the legend it's really specifically dealing with is in Arkansas, version, which is the Fukerfok monster, which there is an earlier film that I'm sure David will bring up later that is like a docudrama horror film called The Legend of Bucky Creek, which is about that. This film was more rooted in those narratives. In fact, borrows some very specific ideas about that story for its version of the sort of Bigfoot creature, which they don't really name here except to call it like creature, Bigfoot creature, ape creature, bipedal. They use all of that language. But anyway, there was a whole thing in the 70s in Arkansas about basically like a Bigfoot, and people claimed there's a Bigfoot, and there were attacks, and folks claimed that it had like 3 little like claws, and like these are all of the things. And it basically from about 71 to 74 is the base period, and then a little bit at the end of the 70s, this thing gets really kind of in the news. The Texarkana Gazette and Daily News both cover it. There are some investigations. Mostly it's believed to either be a hoax or just people misunderstanding what they saw. But it is a thing that really does exist in the sense of like people had an experience and there were stories about it. So there you go.
Cool.
There are tons of Bigfoot related-ish legends. Lurlenny's pointing out that there's like a wall of them basically. And there are tons of them all over different parts of the US. And then obviously all over the globe as well. I mean, I've even heard like...
And the 70s were like...
The big time?
Yes, that was their time to shine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do want to point out that unlike all of the TV shows of the 2000s that were like, oh, Bigfoot hunters, look, we're going to find a Bigfoot, right? They actually show a Bigfoot in this. You see one. You hear it, and you see it with your eye holes. Unlike all of those TV shows where like, did you see that? Did you see that? No, we didn't see that, Bob. Your camera was facing you. Nobody could possibly have seen it. Did you hear it? No, that was just leaves. Shut up, Bob. Hate those shows.
I mean, and that's also, I think that not seeing it, though, I think is really, though, also kind of critical to the, it seems, to the Bigfoot, here using the term in the broadest, as an umbrella term for all of these creatures. So, including the Yeti and so on, that setting aside things like the, TV shows like the one you mentioned, but looking at films like this one, that it does seem to be critical that the creatures are never really seen clearly, right? I mean, this one is positively generous in the amount of screen time gives its monster, while still very much keeping it to the shadows. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think, well, the only time that you get, I think, a Bigfoot creature in a film or a television show where you see them clearly, then it turns into a comedy. It's Harry and the Hendersons.
Yeah.
Or it's
film.
certainly it's very well. Let's see, Night of the Demon. I think you get no. I think even there it's generally kept in the shadows. That's the really gory Bigfoot one with the with the infamous castration scene.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Guy goes to relieve himself ill-advisedly. Yank. But the thing is, it's almost like once you actually cast a spotlight on the Bigfoot and you see him clearly, then it's just a Wookiee.
Yeah.
But it's like they have to stay in the shadows, right? And Creature from Black Lake definitely plays to that particular convention.
Yeah, I agree. And we see its face very, very briefly, but it's always at night, and you don't really get a full view of it. There's no moment where it the camera latches on its face so you see the features. You're always sort of having to imagine how ape-like it actually is, because you don't really get a full accounting. And when we do see it, you're right, we often get it in silhouette, or we get, I think like one of my favorite shots of the whole thing is actually the shot between its legs that is in the opening sequence, where you can see the hairs and stuff, and they're covered in water. And that just felt super realistic to me, of just seeing the legs between the also, just so you know, I also figured out it's a girl, so you're welcome. But right, it just these hairy legs, and I thought that was really well done, because it could have looked super fake and like a weird hairy suit, which I'm sure it literally is, but for some reason it just looks so really like hairy ape legs at that moment. So, and other times the silhouettes, I think using the silhouettes in the dark and using lighting is, I think, really smart on their part. It makes it more threatening.
Yeah, yeah, and disguises the fact that there wasn't a lot of money to go into the into the costuming, right? So
Yeah.
I think they used their resources very, very well here.
Well, that's the thing, right? We've kind of talked about this on other episodes of this, and I'm sure, David, you and I have talked about it at some point, and I'm sure Trish and I have talked about it at some point. But like, if you don't have a lot of money, or if you have a limitation in the technology, if you're really smart about the way you direct, you just take advantage of tricks, lighting, manipulation. You get that in Jurassic Park, and you get some of that here, and it just makes for a better product. Right, to sort of take advantage of things like shadows, etc., instead of being like, let's show you the monster, but we don't have the budget to make it really realistic and really scary looking. And so what we get is something that feels comical and ridiculous. Whereas in my view, this film, while it is comical, it's deliberately comical in moments, but I don't find it comically bad. I actually find it really interesting.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think obviously, how much do you show your monster? That's going to depend very much on the film. And it's also going to, it's not just going to be a question of budget. It's going to be a question or means. It's going to be a question of choice, right? So,
Sure.
Cat People, The Thing from Another World, Alien, all follow the same approach of not showing, only showing you the monster in shadows and glimpses, but mostly keeping it under wraps, right? But to take the example of The Thing from Another World, well, its remake, The Thing, goes the complete opposite direction, right? And to that particular film's benefit for what it's trying to achieve. Right. And though you're right, I would agree that the limitations of costumes will show up if you show them for a long time. Having said that, I wouldn't give up the kind of patty parrot alien of Night of the Blood Beast for anything. And he's there in full sunlight in Bronson Canyon, and he's glorious. Uh, but your point stands all the same.
I think you and I, if we had to sit down and make a list of the movie monsters we could leave at home, I would leave more at home than you would. Because, I mean, there are some monsters we've seen in some horror films we've done for Torture Cinema where I was like, if they weren't murdering people, they're actually cute. You know? What was the one with the like weird dragon that like sucks people's blood? Whatever the one in the Aztecs thing.
Oh,
for the flying serpent.
Yeah. That's one. That's a great example. I almost thought it was cute, except it was sucking people's blood, which
Right. Well, I kind of adored the walking tree monster resurrected from the grave on that. From Hell It Came. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was meant to be scary, but I'm afraid I thought it was cute.
You almost want to hang out.
Would I prefer to have that tree in the shadows and barely seen? Hell no! I want to see it in all its glory. And as for Quetzalcoatl in the Flying Serpent, same thing, right? It's that's the thing I love about the PRC films, like the Flying Serpent or the Devil Bat, which is what the Flying Serpent is remaking. You get to see those monsters and all of their wires, but it's the studio going, hey, you paid to see a monster, here it is, right? And that sends me home happy.
Well, okay, so we got to get to we actually need to talk about this film, and we're going to do our likes. And Trish, I'm going to throw it to you first because I like you, and I think we should get a happy thing. And so, Trish, what is something you legitimately liked about this film?
Well, it made me a little nostalgic for my hometown, which has a park called Greenfield Lake, which I have ridden my bicycle around many times. It has cypress knees. It has alligators once in a while. You can rent the little paddle boats that you paddle with your feet and go around on it, or you can canoe on it. Swimming is not advised, but it has all the cypress knees and the Spanish moss and beautiful azaleas. Mm-hmm. So anyway, just the clearly parts of this were filmed in the South.
Yes.
And I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the frog chorus that came on quite a few times because as they said, the Bigfoot doesn't bother with the little stuff like frogs and birds and stuff. It goes after big game. So yeah, I guess in general, I enjoyed the atmosphere of this movie.
Well, you'll be pleased to know, Trish,
there were other
that it was filmed not only in Louisiana, but one of the locations was the location that's mentioned in the movie, Oil City. So there you go. No Chicago or any Illinois was shown in this at all. It's all Louisiana, Oil City, Bossier City, and Shreveport. Or Shreveport.
Right, and this is not a case where, like, Shaun will say, I liked the grass in the movie. I actually... There are other things that I liked about this movie, but this is the atmosphere and the nostalgia is what immediately got me in favor of this movie.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would agree that I think there's a really, like, you can practically feel the mosquitoes biting when you're watching this thing. Never having been to those parts, but there's at least it felt like the ring of authenticity for me. I mean, I do when I watch this film, I do feel like I'm sort of plunging into a nicely wrought atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yeah, the only thing I would criticize at the beginning is I just really hate the choice of what the titling looks like, because it feels very cartoony to me. Everything else about that opening sequence, though, right through to the first death, right? I thought all of that was really fantastic, partly for what you were saying, Trish, like the atmosphere. I feel like I'm in the swamp. I'm sure they're not actually that deep in there, but they made it feel like I'm really in there, and they're really these trappers running around and with their crazy little hats and dealing with the heat and all of that stuff. And it just feels, it reminded me of Florida, even though I know it's literally Louisiana. So it just sets a great atmosphere, except the weird yellow cartoon titling.
That was very, very 70s, right? That yellow font. I mean, it's all over films from that period. I mean, you'll note that, for instance, something recent like The Conjuring, which is set in the 70s, recreates a font very like that for its look, right? Is a part of giving us that feel of it. So I have to say those sorts of that particular look for the titles kind of takes me back to the 70s. Right? I guess I may not have the location, but I have the chronology nostalgia.
Right.
I mean, this is a good era for horror film. I will say. I was rewatching the Day of the Dead. If I've got the title correct, the second Romero film.
Dawn of the Dead. Dawn
of the Dead. Excuse me. Well, then the third one, the one where they give the guy the headset to make him listen to music. Bob.
Day of the Dead.
Yeah, that one. I was rewatching that one. I really like that one.
The third one from the 80s.
Yeah. But Dawn of the Dead is also good. Look, I don't know what decades we're talking about, so we'll just move on before I shove any more foot inside my mouth. Great. Well, David, what is it like for you?
Well, we've already touched on one of my big likes, which is the use of the monster. But so I guess the one that I'll go with is the fact that, I mean, I guess the structure of the film, right? That it may sound like, well, isn't that kind of a baseline requirement, but that we have an engaging story with actual characters, and there's been some care put into the characters, along with like the way the performances shape them, right? The little ticks that the different figures have, and they are an engaging characters, and it's and the story works. Because I mean the so I mean this film is obviously, and you mentioned this earlier, Sean. It's in the shadow of The Legend of Boggy Creek, which is the big Bigfoot film in terms of success. And in fact, Howco International, the company that distributed and produced Creature from Black Lake, and was founded by the director's father. Uh, they were the ones who distributed Legend of Boggy Creek and made a mint with that. And as important as Legend of Boggy Creek is, and a film I certainly need to revisit, I do find it that in many ways it's it does feel a little bit like if Terrence Malick decided to make a Bigfoot movie and worked in the exploitation realm, this is what we would get. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of nature footage with poetic music on the soundtrack, and that the actual story, like the actual kind of, all right, Bigfoot, scary stuff doesn't really kick in until the last 20 minutes of the movie. Whereas this has incident, some spikes of incident throughout, right? Even though we're not going to get the actual attack on our main characters until the climax of the film, we get the flashback stories, which are necessary for any a Bigfoot film. And so yeah, the fact that we've got we have a story to follow. And it's a simple one. It's straightforward, but we feel the stakes and we feel the characters. Right, there's something there for us to latch onto, and that really made a difference for me.
Agreed. Yeah, there's substance in this.
Yeah, there is.
So like the thing that
and the character.
Go ahead, Trish. Go.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Just the characterization starts with just the names of the people in it. The main characters are Pahu, which many people in the film react humorously to this name, but it's never explained. And I kind of like, here's this graduate student who looks like he's 45 or something like that. And we later find out that, he worked for years on a chicken ranch with his family and then escaped to the Vietnam War and was there for a while. And, so anyway, he is, and he's a graduate student who has seen some stuff, man.
Yeah.
And he's older and he hates eating chicken because of the chicken ranch. So he has his little verbal tics. But anyway, I kind of like that they never explain what is up with his name.
Yeah, why is he called that?
Obviously not his real name, but he even has one of those baseball jerseys with Pahu printed on the back of it, just in case you missed his name. They never explain it. The other guy is named Reeves, and, I assume that's his last name, that he never gets his first name mentioned. He has his quirks too. He looks kind of I was thinking he looks kind of like Sean Cassidy.
Yeah.
So he has, before we found out their names, I was calling them Blondie and Longhair. So people in the movie comment on this guy's long hair when he goes into a barber shop to try to find people to talk about the creature. And, the barber quite naturally assumes he's there for a haircut because, it's not wildly long, it's not ponytail long, but it's certainly, way past the nape of his neck. So, anyway, I guess that's a long discussion, but I do like the characterization of the main people, and even the minor side characters, a lot of them have little quirks to make them, one of them is a drunk, and that's his character, but I guess we can consider that he's drunk because of the trauma of his friend being pulled from the canoe and killed. Maybe.
Maybe.
And he also likes having creepy dolls hanging from nooses
What
in
was
his.
up with those creepy dolls in his cabin?
And there's a definite Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe going on in the art design of that cabin.
But he's harmless, right?
We are left with.
He's just a trapper who lives in the woods, and he's just kind of quirky. But he is apparently fearsome enough that when people make fun of him in public, all he has to do is stand by them and look menacing and talk menacing, and they go, "Oh no, I don't want none of that." Because the joke, there's a bunch of wife jokes in this where wives are compared to animals, which are all very sexist, but they're all like very similar jokes. And it's funny to me that like every guy who's married almost in this has one of these jokes. So like the grandpa, for example, who's took his grandson in after the parents were killed in a horrible car accident because of the beast and all of these things. He tells the joke about how he once caught a 350-pound catfish, and he's just referring to his wife, but his wife's in on the joke. And then the guy that's in the cafe, right? He tells the story about how he saw the creature, and then what he found out was that it was just his wife. It wasn't actually the creature, and everybody laughs at it, except for Joe Canton, who is the one who has lost his friend, who immediately stands over him and is like, "You think that's so funny?" And the guy immediately begins like, No, Joe. I'm so sorry, Joe." And I was like, what has this man done?
He doesn't just stand over him. He grabs him by the shirt front and shakes him a little bit and has him kind of off his feet, off balance, certainly. So,
and unless I'm getting the characters' names wrong, the guy that he's threatening there, the actor, also plays the Bigfoot.
I wasn't aware of that.
Which is a nice little
funny
touch, right?
A little meta.
And further to your point, Trish, about our two main characters and the, like you said, so Pahu, who's the graduate student who's seen all that, and then like you said, like the long hair student. I mean, there is that moment where the tension boils up between them and says, "Well, yeah, and you were traipsing around Canada while I was in Vietnam, right?" There is this definite sense of like the two of them having had very different experiences, right? Which also winds up. I mean, the Pahu's greater degree of anxiety is perhaps is understandable when he said, when he knows there are reasons to be scared of things, and so he doesn't really want, he'd rather get away from the thing that is scaring him yet again.
There's a lot of great character work, and I think this is a film that they spent the time on this, right? To really give little bits of layers to these characters, who I think in frankly in a worse film, a film deserving of the score that it has, by the way, we wouldn't get that. These characters would be a little bit more cookie cutter, right? The characters would feel more like Joe Canton's character does, which he's not a main character. He's a secondary character. So I don't expect his character to have like these like elaborate backstories, like he went to Nam and he's got trauma, all that stuff. But even his character gets little bits of it. And so I think for me, part of what I just found so interesting, and this is really us just talking about my like and me just getting to the point of admitting that this is my like, I just appreciate how much of the story is about these people as people and their desires and their wants and who they are and what are their weird little quirks and strange elements about who they are, how this town operates and how this town sort of subverts my expectations. The sheriff, for example, who immediately is like, "Get out my town, boys, because like I don't want you messing with anybody." And then you realize, no, he's just trying to keep his small town from sort of like, he doesn't want his people all terrified because they've already been terrified. He doesn't want all of the sort of big city world to come in and like make his people suffer. He's literally just trying to protect his people. He's not like what I think our impression of him is, which is like he's, you know, like the parents in Footloose of like, I don't want you bringing none of that hippie nonsense into my town. And I love that. I love that every little element, everyone is a little more complicated than we take them for, right? They're not the stereotype we expect of them.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, because when they arrive, you know, and there's these sort of, Reese walks in and they're all looking at him in the barbershop. You're ready for exactly that stereotype, right? It's going to be the town of hostile yokels, and that. And there's going to be all kinds of problems with that. And then it's like, no, they are just people, right? And the sheriff, who we do, I mean, he's certainly deeply conservative, and he doesn't want his daughter messing around with these long hairs. But we also see that he is also a very decent man, right? That when people are in trouble, he's rushing to help.
Yep.
And then the town itself is not a monolith, right? Because we have the the guy who saw the played by the son of the director, who saw the Bigfoot as a child, right? Who comes up to talk to them, right? And even his family dynamic is a little more complicated than we thought.
Yeah.
So it is much more just like a small film about people reacting to circumstances in different ways, but nobody's a saint and nobody's a villain.
Yes. Yeah. That's one of my favorite parts.
And it would have been pretty easy to depict the art scientist from out of town as smart and everyone else is dumb. But they didn't go that way.
That ain't true of Pahu.
Pahu kept putting his feet in his mouth all the time.
He loves that taste.
Those boys didn't have any manners. They didn't offer to help with the chores or anything like that. They deserved to get thrown out after re-traumatizing the poor grandmother. And but
even there when he does it, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they didn't. And yet even there when he does that, we also see how it's completely by accident, right? It's its own terror that bursts out where he's like, is that, he's very, very jumpy, right? And you can see the look on his face. He's like, oh, he realizes what he's done as soon as he has done it.
Yeah.
Yes. He had some really good facial expressions throughout the movie. He didn't have super great dialogue, but it got the job done, and he was definitely acting with his face and his body, not just going through motions.
Yeah. I love the long running joke about how he only wants to eat hamburgers, fries, and a Coke, and yet he not once the whole movie gets to eat that.
No,
the only food we see him eat is the one thing he specifically tells us he never wants to eat, which is chicken.
Because of growing up on a chicken ranch.
Right.
Yes.
Right. His mom once tried to make chicken jello, as he tells us.
Yeah, I did like that line.
Which, yes, certainly some horrible aspic, meat gelatin things were rife in the 50s, and so I guess our guy would have grown up around then. So
I just love that they wrote the script was written specifically so he never actually eats the thing that he says he wants to eat from the beginning. He never does. It's bananas to me. Right, we see him drink beer.
Well, partly because they keep getting him. He keeps getting thrown out of places.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes.
Right,
or having hamburgers
problems.
thrown at him.
Right.
Or has food thrown at him. Yeah. He almost got to eat that burger he was looking for. Almost. All right, well, I think we can get to dislikes. Yeah?
Wait, did you do your like, Shaun?
Yeah. We've been talking about my like for like... I just didn't announce it till the very end. We just organically ended up here.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Well, let's get to dislikes. So, Trish, what is something you're not a big fan of here?
Well, the sexual dynamics, of course. The waitress gets pinched, and the guy who did it laughs it off, and she has to grit her teeth and laugh it off too. And the thing with the teenage girls, it turns out, who are still in high school, or at least one of them is, who are interested in the graduate students for no reason I can see except that they're out of towners, and maybe it's like, maybe he'll fall in love with me and take me away from here. Or maybe it's just, I want to stick my finger in Daddy's eye by going out with this long hair. But the scene where the girls show up at the campsite and they are negotiating towards having some kind of relations is really kind of cringy. Not that the guys are awful, but boy, they have some bad lines.
Oh my god.
Bad.
Yes.
Really bad. And
some of them are clearly meant to be, I think.
Yeah.
And let me just give you some advice. If you are, trying to hit on a Southern girl, you don't go for the North. Here comes the North. Making contact with the South. My mind immediately went to Sherman. I'm gonna, I'm gonna march all over you, girl, or something like that. It was just no, don't.
That's
don't,
weird.
Don't do that. Please don't do that. It was, it's not like it's not like the guys were terrible. They weren't, sex pests or anything. The girls came on to them, but it was just, the dialogue was cringy, and maybe maybe that's more characterization because these guys are not smooth operators. But that was the most painful part of the movie to watch for me.
I think most of the cringiest lines are all Pahu's, if memory serves.
Yes.
Right, like Reese comes across as comparatively more sane, whereas every time Pahu opens his mouth, you're going, "Oh, please, no, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." So
just kiss her or kiss him.
Yeah, that was Trish and I the whole time we're talking about, why don't the two guys just kiss already?
The lighting that they did, it made it look like they were really hinting that there's some homoerotic tension in there, but that's all we got was subtext.
Yeah. Alas. But yeah, I agree. The sexy stuff is, it's probably the worst written part, and maybe they just meant that. They just really wanted to emphasize that, here, especially with Pahu, right? Like, here is a guy who, like, has not been with many women in any context other than
clearly
his mother.
Not.
Right?
No.
Because I kept thinking, like, how is he getting these? How? Because everything he says that comes out of his mouth is, like, the opposite of attractive, and yet he manages it, right? Like, the line... I think part of it is just what you said, Trish, right? That technically the girls hit on them, because the first conversation they have is, like, in the street, and they were like, what do you guys do at night? And they're like, we just do what comes natural, right? Right, which, of course, Pahu just steals that line and is like, well, we're in nature. You want to do what's natural. And she's like, you don't waste any time, do you? And it's like, well, life's short. And it's like, okay. This is like, the only thing missing here is, like, you want to die a virgin. Like, that's the missing piece here. Of course,
it would have been even odds as to whether it was her or him who would have said that line.
Yeah. It's just, it's a bit ridiculous. At least it's not most of the movie.
Right. That's right. It's only a small part of the movie.
Yeah. David, what about you?
I mean, I guess I think the one technical limitation on the part of the film that does stand out is that the sound is quite muzzy, at least as far as the dialogue is concerned. The Blu-ray that it's on now is a lot better than previous iterations of the film. I've seen some versions on YouTube which are almost incomprehensible. You can't make out anything that's being said. But so it does appear to have been an issue with the recording on the film itself. I mean, the sound effects, I don't know, maybe your prints were fine. It wasn't it didn't ruin the experience for me. And the sounds of the creature are terrific. And Trish, you mentioned the frog choruses and
Mm-hmm.
so forth. All that was great. But there was a certain kind of echoey quality to the dialogue
Hmm.
at times. It wasn't as clear as it could have been. Again, this is kind of on the in the realm of a quibble. I'm the last person to beat up a film for its budgetary limitations. But I've seen films that cost less money than this that had clearer sound
Okay. Fair. I
or clearer dialogue. Anyway.
I didn't have that issue, but maybe maybe it's just the way that it was processed into Tubi for us. But Trish, you
Mm.
watched the same thing I did, and I didn't get that, so maybe it's, I don't know, or
No,
maybe.
I was actually thinking at one point the chorus is loud, but I can hear the people talking too. Good job, film,
Okay.
is what I thought.
So
So,
yeah. So well, then I guess I have to bracket this with the caveat that unless it's an issue with the Blu-ray edition, which would
Wouldn't
I was
make
sort
a
of
whole
doing a
lot of
little bit
sense.
no, and I did a little bit of digging around, and so the one thing I saw mentioning it suggests that it is in fact something on the film. And since I've encountered that sound in cheaper versions of
mm-hmm.
the film, where you really can't make out what anybody is saying,
Oh.
it's right. But I'm glad that you didn't have that issue. So yeah. So again, caveats, sound, and notes of caution around this particular dislike.
Yeah, maybe there's just versions where they've just rebalanced things, maybe, or
Yeah,
who knows.
possibly.
Yeah. So it's weird, but you know what? It happens. I mean, you know. Well, okay. I guess it comes to me then, because we have to talk about what I don't like about this film. Um, I think the main thing I don't like about this film, it's supposed to be a horror film. And in many ways, I can see the pieces of a horror film are here. And it's meant to be scary. But really, there's only one part of it that I think was actually legitimately scary. And that's the very end of the movie, when he's kind of running from the creature and then he accidentally stabs his best friend slash possible lover straight in the chest with a knife, which I think that whole sequence is pretty well
Yeah.
done. But to me, this is less a horror movie than like a character study of the sort of people, like, fish out of water in an area of people that they don't really know, right? Because they're not from the deep south, as it were, which is where they're kind of meant to be. So I think that for me is kind of the issue, because it's a film called Creature from Black Lake, and the implication from the poster and everything is you're getting a horror film. I didn't really get much of a horror film. To me, it wasn't much of a horror film. It was a film with infrequent parts that felt mildly tense. In fact, the most scary parts are the parts when Pahu opens his mouth, and I'm worried they're going to get shot because they've said something offensive to a Southerner. Because there are a couple moments, like when they're being attacked by the creature, or like the creature's walking around their tent or whatever, and he's holding the gun up, and the sheriff comes in, and I thought he was going to shoot the sheriff, and I was like, oh, that's the scary part. They go to like a prison in the South, and that's what we're going to get as the part of the story, because they shot a small town sheriff. But no, that's not what happens. So that's my biggest, I suppose, complaint. Also, I just want to note that this was on a poll for Trouble at Lakes, and while the title of this suggests there's a lake, there really isn't a lake in this. The end of the movie,
swamp.
It's a swamp, and they do use the word Black Lake, but we never actually see said Black Lake, and so I'm not so sure that they know that they're near a lake, or if they're just making it up. But the sheriff manages to get there and save Pahu's life, so there you go.
And what I would say about your point about the horror is that I guess first, that's not an unusual structure for a lot of horror films certainly from this period, right? Where the scary bits are primarily concentrated in the last part, right? I mean,
Yeah, fair.
there were lots of exceptions too, but they were. I mean, what we get there isn't not unusual. And what this film does do is give you those other. I mean, because of the nature of the story, right? Where they're looking for it, you can't really get to the scary thing until the end, because if they find the monster too soon, then the movie's over. And I do agree with you that the climax is really well done,
Yeah.
and especially, I guess I'm also thinking in terms of other similar movies, right? And I find that though there is an aspect of, I mean, you mentioned the poster, I'm reminded of exploitation film producer Dave Friedman's statement of "sell the sizzle, not the steak."
Mhm.
And so, as you point out, we don't really get the steak until the last few minutes, but that climax rocks, and we get spikes along the way, right? When
Hmm.
the sounds of the creature at the farmhouse, the flashback to when the family was killed, right? So there is some spreading it out elsewhere in the film. I mean, if you compare this to She Freak, which doesn't get to its horror stuff until really the last 3 minutes of the movie. And I mean, I'm being charitable there, but then I should also bracket this by saying it's a movie I've come to really quite like.
Hmm.
It's just you're not going for it for the spooks. You're going for it for the spook or the scaries. You're going for it for the carnival footage. But that's a whole other discussion.
Sure.
I mean, he, so we're in the as we were talking about the period of the Bigfoot films, and I mean, this is undeniably one of the very best,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
There's some. Yeah, I mean, I would say if we're talking about the broadest sense of the of the genre, the best would be Hammer's The Abominable Snowman with Peter Cushing, with a script by Nigel Neal. That's the apex of this particular genre. That's from the late 50s.
Hmm.
But in the 70s offerings, this one is working really well. Now, I would say in
Hmm.
terms of Yeti Bigfoot movie that delivers horror more consistently, you have Shriek of the Mutilated, which also has, apart from having one of the greatest titles ever, has a group of students going to look for, well, in this case, the Yeti. And where are they going? New England, because where else other than the Himalayas would you go? Uh,
What?
the
The Arctic,
yes,
Yukon or something. Not New England
yeah.
so
I mean,
much.
in the end, and this is a spoiler, but it's a spoiler that's basically given away by the poster. So the uh, the Yeti turns out to be just a guy in a costume,
Oh,
because
Scooby
and
Doo.
though you're thinking, okay, Scooby Doo, yeah, except then it's not as a front for, say, real estate developers wanting the land. No, it's a way of luring the students out here so they can become victims of les gens du doigt, the people of the finger, an international satanic cult of cannibals.
Okay,
So
that
it's
goes
actually
in an
even cooler.
unexpected direction.
The
Yeah, it's like whoa,
finger.
right? Okay, yeah. So and plus you've got Hot Butter's popcorn playing in an early scene. So and anyway, that film gives you a fair bit of gore and nastiness all the way
Hmm.
through. And the '80s film Night of the Demon, okay, that's your major gore Sasquatch film, right? But in terms of the '70s, other than Shriek of the Mutilated, I think this one is the is kind of more consistent in giving you what you go for, what you went for. And I'm including here the so-called documentaries, right? Like the Mysterious Monsters, uh, Mysteries from Beyond Earth, which was when my young self discovered there was such a thing as a bad movie. Uh, and so on. So yeah, I mean, I take your point, but I think when it does deliver on the goods, it really delivers on the goods.
I agree it does deliver. I think maybe a way of reframing this might be that this is they're supposedly anthropology students, but they are implied to be physical anthropology students, not cultural anthropology students. But they behave like cultural anthropology students, but they have a mission that you would expect of physical anthropology students.
I'm assuming that the anthropology department is not big enough to make large distinctions between physical and cultural. You get your courses in everything when you're starting out. And, maybe these kids are only in their first year or between semesters.
Oh,
or
they ain't
something.
getting no money. They ain't getting no money in a van.
And if we're expected to swallow that a graduate course in the anthropology department is going to be on the almost certain existence of cryptids, then
Sure, anything goes at that point.
I'll buy the rest of it after that.
Yeah, next semester, vampires. Are they really afraid of the sun? I don't know. I feel like it'd be kind of more fun if they spent more time in the actual swamp and had more false starts of, oh, it's scary, and then it's like a hog or something.
Well, they give us a couple of those.
Yeah, that's fair. But I don't know. Overall, I mean, if I'm being frank, I don't dislike this movie. Like, at all. I don't think it's great. I think it's fine. I think it's actually pretty solid. I found lots in this film really fun. This is me getting my final thought in crate, so I figured I'd just get it out of the way now.
Right.
In every way, I enjoyed this, right? There was no part of this where I went, oh yeah, this is like a 30% on Rotten Tomatoes. It totally deserves that. No way does this deserve that grade at all. This is not a horrifically bad movie. It's a fine film. I mean, I would put it basically as like it's a B movie. Literally.
Yeah.
To me, it's like a B minus, and I enjoyed it. That's just the end of it. Like, I don't know what else to tell you guys, but like, we've watched some stuff on here that I will never watch again, and you can't pay me. There's no amount of money. This is a film where, like, if it came on, I'd be like, yeah, let's just leave it. Let it run. Let's go. Yeah. So I'll give it a B, because I think it's a legit B.
Very fair.
Yeah. Trish, what about you?
This movie is not trying to be great art, but for what it's trying to be, it does a pretty solid job. Yeah, I guess it's not really very horrific. It's mostly, like you said, fish out of water, and then punctuated by moments of action adventure, more than horror. Some running and screaming and stuff, but this is, for what it's doing, it was better than I expected. Considerably better than I was expecting. So I'm gonna give it a B+.
I think that's fair. And Dave, it comes to you.
Yeah, well, no, in a similar vein, I mean, I guess I think what you were just saying, Tricia, about what it was setting out to do, right? So, within the terms of the film itself sets out, I think it does a really good job, and I mean, like, it comes very close to being the perfect drive-in movie. Right. And which is where a friend of mine first saw it, which I think, okay, then you saw it in its natural habitat, and I am very jealous of you. So I'm going to give it an A-.
Well, yeah, I kind of expected that, to be honest. You were either going to go completely opposite of us and be like, no, this is garbage, or you guys are heathens, or you were going to basically be in the same territory. So, yeah.
Yeah,
well, I
think
that
we're all in the
averages
same
out.
ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
does.
averages out to a B+. So, there you go.
Yeah, I think that's very fair.
I agree. I watch this film. It's got some good stuff in it, guys. I don't know what to tell you, but It's worth a watch. It's not that bad. I don't get what people are complaining about. I've seen 3 Transformers movies, 2 of which I will not voluntarily watch again. Okay?
Yeah.
And I like Transformers and giant
like
robots. Well, okay. Let's not get too far here, right? Like, you're going to trot out something at some point, but like, Shaun, you should watch this. And I'm going to watch it and be like, David, I'm not sure this is a movie. It's just going to be like still shots that you've like stretched out in a YouTube video that's 3 hours long.
I'll sit you down to watch a Doris Wishman film someday and see what happens.
If you think that's legitimately good, just remember, David, Totally Pretentious is for films you legit think are good, not films that you think Shaun will have a seizure over.
That'll be our next podcast stream. The films that Shaun will have a seizure over.
Oh, that's
we'll just actually, the whole podcast will just be watching your reaction.
Well, oh boy, I don't know. I mean, I can handle a lot, David, so you're going to have to really go deep. And I know you know how, which is the problem. So. All right, folks, we're going to close out. No, don't do it. Okay, folks, we're going to close it out. If you'd like to let us know what you thought about this episode, if you watched the film, for example, and you'd like to let us know that you absolutely agree with our assessment and that we're 100% correct, you can go to skiffyandfanty@gmail.com. And if you don't agree with our assessment, you can email thisisnotskiffyandfanty@gmail.com, and feel free to let them know what you think of them. You can join the Discord, as always, through our Patreon page, and you can talk to us there as well. There's a channel just for show discussion. So if you want to talk about a show you listen to, or you have a reaction to something we said, or you want to add something, you can do that. We are on Blue Sky, Threads, Mastodon, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places. If you go to skiffyandfanty.com/skiffythings, links to all that stuff there. And then we are here every Friday, 7 p.m. Central on Twitch at twitch.tv/alphabetstreams for our live show format, which would be for pretty much every show we do, except the Dispatch, which is in the Discord. And so if you like what we do, please support the show. We are presently broke because we had to pay to deal with malware. And I'm just pointing that out now. And so if you are not a Patreon supporter, literally $1 does a solid. You get a bunch of really cool stuff for it. And I don't know, it just makes me feel good inside. So there you go. So we are technically doing a thing right now, which is apparently if we get to, was it 100 or 150 a month? I can't remember what.
I think it was 150.
We're gonna say 150 because I'm gonna need that extra. Okay. If we ever get to 150 per month, I will sit in the Torture Cinema Viewscape channel on our Patreon Discord, and I will watch 2019's Cats live, and you can watch me slowly waste away as I go through this experience. And so if that makes you happy, because you would love to see me suffer, there you go.
And who wouldn't?
And that's at patreon.com/skiffyandfanty.
By the way, not by the way, integrally, we would like to thank all of our Patreon supporters. And that includes Andrea the Alluring, Cameron the Chthonic, Carolyn the Benevolent, Carrie the Divine, Chris the Candescent, Dan the Transient, Daniel the Cultured, David the Debonair, JC the Jocular, and Jeff the Gracious,
Joseph the Jovial, On the Junctional, KB the Kind, Karen the Kickass, Kat the Kinematic, Matthew the Magnificent, Paul the Pious, Phoebe the Eloquent, Robin the Bold,
Ryan the Resilient, Sarah A. the Sensational, Sarah E. the Sublime, Sarah O. the Rapturous, Scott the Gentleman, Stephen the Strange, Tari the Thorough, Tanya the Triumphant, Trish the Imperturbable, and Victor the Valiant, some of whom are in chat at the moment live on our stream. Thank you all very much for both being here and supporting the show. And thanks everybody at home who is supporting the show. We really, really appreciate it. I'm ShaunDuke.net if you want to find me, ShaunDuke.net/DukeThings if you want to find all of my socials and my projects like the histories, my Alphabet Streams channel, which you might be here for already, and so on and so forth. I stream Wednesdays and Sundays, 6 p.m. Central.
You can find me on Facebook as David Annandale. Look for the avatar of the crawling eye, and on Mastodon at David Annandale at social.horrorhub.club.
You can find me, Trish Matson, on Blue Sky at PE Matson, on Mastodon at Trishy M at newsy.social. I blog occasionally at whatsthewordnow.blogspot.com, and I review quite regularly at Skiffy and Fanty.
All right, as required by the Skiffy and Fanty bylaws that were amended in the year of 2025, I must make this happy. And so, with that in mind, I think I can just say this. We all agreed that the movie we watched for this episode was broadly very good, and we enjoyed the experience, and there were no contentious moments. There was mild disagreement on some positions, but nothing dramatic. We didn't have to rip into each other in order to make comedy. We could just talk about the things that we enjoyed, have a couple of laughs about things that were kind of silly, laugh about some of the jokes, and in the end, I think it would be fair to say that we all just feel at peace. And so that is where I will
thank you to the
people.
Patreons for voting for that movie for us.
A+. You could have picked some real stinkers, and you chose this one. So joke's on you, suckers.
Yes. Yeah, there was bullets were dodged.
Definitely bullets were dodged. And on that note, I guess happy ending and see you.